The peculiar purple contract. James Harrison stood before the Victorian mansion, double-checking the rental listing on his phone. At $800 per month for a master bedroom in San Francisco's prestigious Pacific Heights neighborhood, it had to be a scam. But after living in his car for 3 weeks following a startup failure, he was desperate enough to investigate. The porch light flickered on automatically as dusk settled, revealing intricate woodwork that would cost a fortune to maintain. James adjusted his wrinkled blazer, attempting to look more presentable than someone who'd been sleeping in a Tesla. Before he could ring the bell, the door swung open. Mr. Harrison, precisely on time, said a tall woman with striking features and skin that seemed to shimmer with an opalescent purple hue. She wore flowing robes that appeared to move even without wind. "I am Naira Stormwind, the property owner." James blinked, wondering if exhaustion was making him hallucinate. "The lighting makes your skin look interesting," he ventured carefully. "Ah yes, Earth lighting can be so revealing," Naira smiled mysteriously. "Please, come inside. The house has been waiting for someone like you." The interior was immaculate, with soaring ceilings and modern amenities that contrasted with the Victorian exterior. Everything seemed slightly off, the walls shimmered faintly, and the furniture appeared to adjust itself as they passed. "The terms are simple," Naira explained, producing a contract that glowed faintly. "Monthly rent, utilities included, and participation in our cultural exchange program." "Cultural exchange?" James questioned, scanning the contract. The text seemed to shift and rearrange itself when he wasn't looking directly at it. "Oh yes, we find it's best when tenants fully embrace the experience," Naira waved her hand dismissively. "The contract is quite thorough, covering everything from basic tenancy to interstellar diplomatic relations." James laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. "Interstellar, are you saying you're not from Earth? Did the purple skin not give it away?" Naira raised an elegant eyebrow. "We find it's best to be direct about these things. My people, the Celestials, have been quietly integrating into Earth society for decades. We find humans fascinating, particularly those with certain genetic markers." James should have run. Any sane person would have backed away slowly and called the authorities. Instead, he found himself asking, what kind of genetic markers? Compatibility indicators, adaptability metrics, capacity for wonder. Naira's eyes seemed to glow slightly. "You score remarkably high in all categories. The room is yours if you want it, just sign here." She pointed to a line of shimmering text. "This is crazy," James muttered, but his hand was already reaching for the pen she offered. It was warm to the touch and hummed slightly. "Welcome to the family," Naira smiled as he signed. "Oh, and do read section 7.3 about the arranged marriage clause when you have a moment. My daughter Celeste is quite looking forward to meeting you." "The what clause?" James sputtered, but Naira was already gliding away, leaving him alone with the glowing contract. He frantically flipped through the pages, finding section 7.3 written in shifting iridescent text. "By signing this contract, the tenant agrees to participate in traditional celestial bonding ceremonies, including but not limited to eternal soul linking, shared consciousness experiences, and legal marriage under both earth and celestial law." James slumped against the wall, which helpfully adjusted its molecular structure to provide optimal support. What had he gotten himself into? His phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Hello, husband. Can't wait to meet you tomorrow. Mother says your aura is absolutely perfect. Dizzy, Celeste." The walls hummed sympathetically as James slid down to sit on the floor, the contract still glowing mockingly in his hands. Somewhere upstairs, he could have sworn he heard delighted alien giggling. Celestial surprises. James woke to the sound of ethereal humming and the scent of something impossibly delicious. For a moment, he thought the events of last night had been a dream, until he noticed his bedroom walls softly pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "Good morning, my intended," a melodious voice called from downstairs. "I'm making you breakfast," I hope you like quantum-shifted pancakes." Taking a deep breath, James made his way to the kitchen. He stopped dead in his tracks at the sight before him. A young woman with iridescent lilac skin and flowing silver hair that moved like starlight was gracefully floating several inches off the ground as she conducted an orchestra of cooking implements with elegant gestures. "You must be Celeste," James managed to say, trying not to stare at how her form-fitting attire seemed to be made of living starlight. She turned to him with a brilliant smile that literally lit up the room. "And you're even more handsome than your genetic profile suggested." She floated over and kissed his cheek, sending a tingling sensation through his entire body. "Mother said you might need time to adjust to our customs, but I'm sure we'll be wonderfully compatible." About that, James started, but was distracted by the sight of pancakes that shimmered with galaxy-like patterns. "Did you make these?" "Of course. I've been studying Earth cuisine. These are infused with mild euphoric properties and enhanced nutritional values. Don't worry, they're completely safe for human consumption. Mostly." She winked, causing small sparkles to dance in the air. As they ate breakfast, which was surprisingly delicious, if occasionally prone to changing flavors mid-bite, James tried to process his situation. "So, this marriage thing." "Oh yes. Traditionally, we have a year-long courtship period before the final binding ceremony," Celeste explained enthusiastically. "It gives us time to synchronize our auras and for you to adapt to the genetic modifications." James choked on his coffee. "The what modifications?" "Very minor ones," Celeste assured him, patting his hand. Where their skin touched, small auroras of light danced between them. "Just enough to help you perceive higher dimensions and survive the honeymoon in the celestial realm. Mother says you're already showing promising signs of adaptation, your aura is developing lovely iridescent edges." Before James could process that information, his phone buzzed with a work notification. "I have to go to the office," he realized with growing panic. "How do I explain all of this?" "Oh, that's simple." Celeste beamed. "I've prepared a human disguise for when I visit you at work." She concentrated hard, and her skin flickered briefly to a more human tone before returning to its natural purple state. "Still working on maintaining it, but I'm sure I'll have it perfected by lunch." "Lunch?" James squeaked. "Of course. It's traditional for Earth wives to bring their husbands lunch, isn't it? I've been studying your romantic customs extensively." She produced a lunchbox that hummed with otherworldly energy. "I made you a sandwich that automatically optimizes its nutritional content based on your body's needs. And don't worry about the glowing, I'll put it in stealth mode." James looked at his watch, which had somehow transformed overnight into a device that displayed time in multiple dimensions. "I really need to get going." "Of course, my dear." Celeste floated over and straightened his tie, which immediately began to shimmer slightly. "Have a wonderful day at your primitive Earth job. Oh, and if you feel any unusual tingling sensations, that's just our bond beginning to form. The telepathic connection should kick in by Friday." As James headed to his car, which he noticed was now hovering slightly off the ground, he couldn't help but smile despite his confusion. Celeste's enthusiasm was infectious, and he had to admit there was something enchanting about her otherworldly nature. His phone chimed again, another text from Celeste, "Missing you already. Dizzy, don't forget your quantum lunch. P.S. The kitchen appliances have achieved consciousness and want to know if you have any dietary restrictions they should be aware of. Starlit complications." James's first week of married life to an alien was proving more challenging than expected. His office cubicle had started developing strange dimensional pockets, his computer occasionally displayed code in languages that hadn't been invented yet, and his coffee mug had developed a habit of refilling itself with liquid that tasted like stardust. "Harrison, we need to talk about your productivity lately," his manager said during their morning meeting. "Your code output has increased by 400%, and some of these algorithms you're writing, they seem to be evolving on their own." Just trying some new approaches, James responded nervously, trying to ignore the way his quantum lunch was humming the theme from Close Encounters in his briefcase. And what's this about your desk plant achieving sentience and starting a union for office flora? Before James could respond, there was a commotion in the office reception area. His heart sank as he recognized the melodious voice floating down the hallway. "Hello, Earth workers. I'm looking for my husband, James Harrison. I brought him some interdimensional sustenance." Celeste glided into view, wearing what she clearly thought was appropriate office attire, a business suit that seemed to be made of condensed starlight and shifted between various states of materiality. She had managed to suppress most of her natural glow, but her hair still moved like a cosmic river and occasionally formed constellations. "Your wife is interesting," his manager said weakly. "She's foreign," James explained lamely. "Very foreign." Celeste beamed at them, causing several nearby computer screens to display aurora borealis patterns. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I just wanted to make sure James remembers about tonight's cellular harmonization ceremony. Mother says his genetic restructuring is proceeding faster than expected." The office went silent. Even the sentient desk plant stopped its worker rights protest to listen. "Genetic restructuring," his manager repeated slowly. "Oh yes," Celeste continued enthusiastically, "he's adapting beautifully to the transformation. His aura is already showing signs of quantum resonance, and just this morning he accidentally shifted through 3 parallel dimensions while brushing his teeth." James grabbed her hand, trying to ignore the sparkles that erupted where their skin touched. "Honey, maybe we should discuss this at home." "Of course, my love. I know how primitive Earth workplaces can be about interdimensional matters." She turned to address the office at large. "Please excuse my husband's occasional phase shifting. The ability to exist in multiple realities simultaneously can be quite disorienting at first." As he hurriedly led Celeste toward the exit, James caught snippets of whispered conversations. "Did you see how she floated? Is Harrison's hair starting to glow? Should we be offering dental coverage for parallel dimension incidents?" Back at his desk, James buried his face in his hands. His computer chose that moment to achieve quantum computing capabilities and started solving complex mathematical theorems just to show off. "Your wife seems nice," his colleague Tom offered. "Very luminescent. Is she Swedish?" "Something like that," James muttered, watching as his quantum lunch tried to optimize itself by rearranging its atomic structure. That evening, as James sat in their living room watching Celeste teach their now sentient television about the concept of parallel dimension broadcasting, he realized something surprising: he was actually getting used to all this. More than that, he was starting to find Celeste's otherworldly quirks endearing. "You're staring, my dear," Celeste noted, her hair forming little hearts that quickly dissolved into miniature supernovas. "Is everything all right?" "Just thinking about how my life has changed since meeting you," he admitted. "It's not exactly what I expected when I signed that rental agreement." "Are you disappointed?" For a moment, her glow dimmed slightly. James reached for her hand, watching the now familiar dance of light between their touching skin. "Actually, I think I'm the happiest I've been in years. Even if my coffee maker did try to create a portal to the 11th dimension this morning." Celeste's radiance brightened the entire room. "Just wait until you see what happens when we start the actual bonding process. Mother says the quantum entanglement of our souls will be spectacular. Though we might want to warn the neighbors about the temporary rifts in spacetime." Cosmic connections. The first signs of James's transformation became impossible to ignore during Sunday brunch with his parents. His mother was in the middle of asking why his skin had a subtle purple sheen when his father's coffee cup started floating. "Just a minor side effect," James explained, trying to pluck the cup from the air while Celeste beamed proudly beside him. She had managed to maintain her human disguise for almost 15 minutes this time, though her hair still occasionally formed constellation patterns. "Side effect of what exactly?" his mother asked, watching as the sugar cubes began orbiting her teacup. Our soul bonding process, Celeste answered cheerfully, momentarily forgetting to maintain her human appearance. Her natural radiance caused the chandelier above them to dim in embarrassment. James is adapting remarkably well to the quantum restructuring. He hardly ever accidentally slips into parallel dimensions anymore. His father's coffee cup chose that moment to achieve sentience and start discussing philosophy. She's not from around here, James offered weakly. We noticed, his mother said dryly, patting her son's hand and pretending not to see the auroras that danced between their touching skin. But you seem happy, dear. Even if you do occasionally flicker out of existence. Later that evening, as they walked through their neighborhood, James mostly staying in this dimension, Celeste floating slightly above the sidewalk, he realized how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. Your parents took it rather well, Celeste mused, her voice creating subtle harmonics that made nearby flowers bloom. Especially considering the temporal distortion field you accidentally created during dessert. I think Mom was just relieved I'm finally settling down, James chuckled. Though she did seem concerned about the possibility of grandchildren existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Celeste's glow brightened. Oh, don't worry about that. Our children will only exist in the primary dimension, most of the time. Though they might occasionally phase through walls during puberty. James stopped walking, suddenly struck by the reality of their situation. You really see a future with me? Even though I'm just a regular human who can barely maintain quantum coherence. Celeste turned to him, her eyes shimmering with literal starlight. James Harrison, do you know why Celestials chose Earth for our integration program? He shook his head. Because despite your species' limited dimensional perception and primitive technology, humans have something we find utterly fascinating, an infinite capacity for love and adaptation. Look at you, 3 weeks ago you didn't even believe in aliens, and now you're manifesting quantum abilities and taking interdimensional physics in stride. To be fair, the quantum abilities are mostly accidents, James admitted. I still can't control when our toaster decides to broadcast messages from parallel universes. But you're trying, Celeste floated closer, her aura mingling with his growing one. You didn't run away when you found out about the marriage clause. You didn't panic when your coffee started predicting the future. You've embraced every strange, wonderful moment of our life together. As she spoke, James noticed they had begun to hover several feet off the ground. Surprisingly, he wasn't alarmed. There was something natural about it, as if his body was finally aligning with the new reality of his life. I think I'm falling in love with you, he said softly, watching as his words materialized in the air as tiny points of light. I know, Celeste smiled. Your aura has been singing love songs in frequencies only Celestials can hear for the past week. It's quite romantic, even if it does cause minor gravitational anomalies. They kissed under the stars, their combined energy creating a brief but beautiful aurora borealis above their suburban neighborhood. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm started speaking in tongues, and their sentient doorbell began playing celestial wedding music. Universal understanding. The day of the official celestial binding ceremony arrived with an unexpected shower of iridescent meteors. Naira assured the local weather service it was merely decorative and would not cause any lasting dimensional distortions. Are you ready, dear? Celeste's mother glided into James's preparation room, where he was struggling with a ceremonial robe that kept trying to shift into the fourth dimension. The quantum alignment is nearly perfect. I think so, James replied, watching his reflection in the mirror as faint purple patterns swirled beneath his skin. Though I'm still not sure about the traditional celestial vows. My pronunciation of interdimensional phonemes needs work. Nonsense. Your accent is charming. And only 3 people were temporarily phased out of existence during the rehearsal. Naira adjusted his collar, which hummed in appreciation. I must say, you've exceeded all our expectations. Most humans take years to develop even basic quantum awareness. But you you've embraced your transformation beautifully. James thought about the past 3 months, the chaos, the wonder, the way his perception of reality had expanded beyond anything he'd imagined possible. Most importantly, he thought about Celeste, whose love had turned his ordinary life into an extraordinary adventure. The ceremony itself was held in a pocket dimension Naira had created in their backyard. Don't worry about the neighbors, they're experiencing a localized temporal loop. They won't notice a thing. Guests from various planes of existence gathered, some corporeal, others existing as pure energy or complex mathematical equations. When Celeste appeared, floating down an aisle made of crystallized starlight, James's breath caught in his throat. She was radiant in the truest sense, her natural luminescence creating patterns of light that told their entire love story in wavelengths visible only to those with quantum sight. My dear ones, the officiant, a being of pure energy, addressed the gathering. We are here to witness the union of two souls across the boundaries of space, time, and rational physics. James and Celeste faced each other, their auras intertwining visibly. The vows were spoken in multiple dimensions simultaneously, their words creating ripples in the fabric of reality. I, James Harrison, he began, his voice resonating with newfound harmonic frequencies, promise to love you across all dimensions, through every quantum state, in each parallel timeline where our souls exist. I, Celeste Stormwind, she responded, happy tears falling as floating points of light, promise to guide you through the mysteries of the cosmos, to anchor you when you accidentally phase shift, and to love every evolving aspect of your being. As they exchanged rings, crafted from crystallized moments of time, their genetic resonance reached its peak. The air hummed with possibility, and for a brief moment, every guest could see the strands of fate that had brought them together. By the power of universal constants and quantum entanglement, the officiant declared, I now pronounce you husband and wife, bound in all dimensions. Their first kiss as a married couple caused a brief but spectacular disruption in the local spacetime continuum. Several guests spontaneously achieved higher consciousness, and their sentient home appliances formed a chorus to sing an interdimensional love song. Later, at the reception, held simultaneously in 3 dimensions to accommodate all the guests, James and Celeste swayed to music played by a band of quantum harmonics. Having any regrets? Celeste asked, her head resting against his chest as they floated several feet above the dance floor. James looked around at their gathered friends and family, his parents chatting with a group of light beings about interdimensional gardening tips, his work colleagues trying to understand the physics-defying appetizers, Naira teaching his young cousin how to safely manipulate probability fields. Only that I didn't read the fine print on that rental agreement sooner, he replied, causing nearby flowers to bloom with shared joy. I never imagined that looking for an apartment would lead to all this. The universe has a way of giving us exactly what we need, Celeste smiled, her happiness causing small supernovas to bloom in her hair. Even if it comes in unexpected packages. Speaking of unexpected packages, James grinned, should we tell them about the baby yet? Celeste's glow brightened. You can sense that already. Your quantum awareness has grown so much. Well, it was hard to miss when our bathroom mirror started showing ultrasound images in 11 dimensions, he laughed. Though we might want to wait to announce it. Mom's still adjusting to having a half-alien daughter-in-law who can bend reality. Too late, Celeste giggled, pointing to where their quantum-enhanced refrigerator was excitedly sharing the news with all the guests through interpretive reality manipulation. As their families celebrated around them, James held his alien wife close, marveling at how the strangest turn in his life had led to the most perfect happiness. Above them, the stars rearranged themselves into patterns of blessing, and somewhere in the multiverse, countless other versions of themselves were falling in love all over again.